federal case just hit a whole new level of chaos.
Federal authorities say Lil Durk is also behind an alleged murder-for-hire plot.
Prosecutors say the rapper tried to destroy an Apple Watch in jail to cover his tracks, and he's now being accused of allegedly taking out hits on his own O-Block associate.
We got some stuff to get into because, bruh, what the hell?
Lil Durk's whole situation just flipped upside down because word on the street is that some of his own fans allegedly sent wild threats toward the judge and the prosecutor. And now Durk's lawyers are pushing heavy for the entire case to get tossed out right now. This twist got everybody watching like, what is going on? And here's the crazy part. The feds supposedly kept these threats hidden for 7 whole months. 7. Now people are asking if Durk might finally walk out that cell, or if these serious murder-for-hire accusations are about to lock him down even harder. This story is messy, it's loud, and every detail keeps getting more unbelievable. So let me bring you in on all the details because this case got layers. Back on October 24, 2024, the feds grabbed Durk, government name Derek Banks, at a Florida airport right as he was trying to dip out of the country. They moved on him fast, like they'd been waiting on that perfect moment. According to what the feds are pushing, they believe Durk helped plan a murder-for-hire hit that went down on August 19, 2022, at a gas station by the Beverly Center in LA. The target? They say the crew was trying to catch Quando Rondo slipping, but instead, the one who lost their life was his relative, Lupa Robinson, a tragedy that made the whole situation explode even more.
According to the complaint, Banks and his co-conspirators allegedly worked together to, quote, track, stalk, and attempt to murder a target at a Los Angeles gas station, firing at least 18 rounds into the person's vehicle. They keep me down.
He's 32, a successful rapper, and a Grammy Award winner. Federal authorities say Lil Durk is also behind an alleged murder-for-hire.
The feds claim this wasn't random. They're painting this like revenge for what happened to King Von back in November 2020 during that violent clash with Quando Rondo's people in Atlanta. They're pushing this whole narrative like the streets have been holding a grudge that never died down. Now look, these charges they're throwing at Durk ain't light at all. They're talking conspiracy to commit murder for hire using communications across state lines in a way that allegedly led to a fatal outcome, and stalking that also resulted in someone losing their life. This is the type of case where if the jury says guilty, Durk would be facing life locked away. No shortcuts, no easy outs, no second chances. The fact that the fans' threats stayed hidden for so long just made this case even more dramatic. And now Durk's legal team is attacking that point hard, saying the feds played dirty and broke the rules. This whole thing is turning into one of the wildest legal battles hip-hop has seen in years. There was no negotiating in this case at all. Either Durk beats it or it's over for him, plain and simple. And the way the feds are talking, they acting like they got a whole blueprint on him. They're claiming they pieced together every little detail, saying OTF credit cards were used to buy flights from Chicago to Cali, pick up ski masks, and pay for hotel rooms tied to the alleged shooters. This is the kind of stuff the government loves to push because it makes everything sound airtight. They're also saying at least 18 rounds were fired at Quando Rondo's car, which already had people looking sideways. But then it gets even wilder. They claim Durk sent a message telling his people, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." On the same day the shooters allegedly flew out to LA. And to make the situation even louder, the feds are saying Durk hopped on a private jet with his co-defendant, Kayvon Grant, around that same time, too. The whole timeline is being painted to look suspicious, and the feds are leaning into it heavy. They're even talking about wiretaps and bank receipts they say show Durk was calling shots behind the scenes. According to them, Grant used Durk's card to buy ski masks and lock in hotel rooms for the people they're accusing of being involved.
A successful rapper and a Grammy Award winner. Federal authorities say Lil Durk is also behind an alleged murder-for-hire plot.
Wow, guys. We have Lil Durk, who's been gone now for a year, is what it's looking like.
Durk pled not guilty from the jump, and his whole team has been fighting tooth and nail, but on paper, the evidence they're showing off looks stacked, at least from how the government is packaging it. Then, the story takes a wild turn, and this is where everything starts going off track fast. On November 13th, 2025, Durk's legal dream team dropped a motion asking the court to throw the entire case out. They said the government hid key information for over 7 months, which is a serious issue in any federal case. When lawyers start screaming hidden evidence, it usually means the courtroom is about to heat up. Here's the part that shocked everybody. On February 22, 2025, 4 voicemails were left for U.S. Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue, and these weren't regular angry messages at all. These were life-threatening voicemails that had the whole courthouse on edge. One message said, "If they get life, I'm gonna burn this mother night down. I'm talking about the world, and I'm gonna burn it to the ground," which had officials treating the situation extremely seriously.
Judicial system, in order for a attorney or somebody in your behalf, this is one of the biggest fights in California history, in the federal jurisdiction. This shows you what $1 billion attorney to bring the facts that Durk's attorneys found out through their investigation that there was a conspiracy with the judge, the prosecutor, and the investigators to weigh aside and cause threats that Durk had killers putting a contract on the judge.
Hearing something like that would shake anybody, and it didn't stop there. On April 28, 2025, the lead prosecutor, Ian Iannello, got a threatening phone call too. The caller told him and his team to free Durk or they would get shot, which forced security to tighten up immediately. The legal system does not play with threats like that, and Durk's lawyers are saying the fact that this information was kept hidden is a major violation that could change everything. So check this out, because this part right here had the whole system scrambling. The FBI didn't waste a single second. They jumped on the situation instantly and put every federal judge in California on high alert. U.S. Marshals even started rolling out extra security like something major was about to go down. This wasn't no light moment. This was official business handled at the highest level. But here's where everything gets real messy. They didn't tell Durk's lawyers anything about these threats until October 1st, 2025, which is more than 7 months later. 7 months is a long time to be sitting on information that's serious. Anyone would look at that sideways, because that type of delay can flip a whole case upside down fast. Now you might be wondering how a bunch of out-of-control fans leaving threats could possibly help Durk, right? Let me walk you through the legal angle his attorneys are pushing. On May 8, 2025, Judge Donahue held a bail hearing and denied Durk's release, keeping him locked in. But what nobody revealed at the time was that she was receiving life-threatening messages supposedly from people supporting Durk. And the defense was never told. That alone had the whole legal team heated. Durk's lawyers are saying that this created a major conflict because the judge was under stress and danger, and that pressure could have affected her ability to make a neutral call.
So when they found out about it, and they did not, this has been going on for the last couple of weeks, I guess, and when they found out about it, and they presented it to the court had hid it and not said anything about it to the defense. So that means that if a judge is being threatened by a defendant, in all actuality, he should, what they call, recuse himself, get off the bench, and let another judge.
They're arguing that if they had known about these threats, they could have asked for a completely different judge to oversee the matter. But instead, they were kept totally in the dark while those rulings were being made. Now they're saying every decision from that period is questionable. In their 25-page motion, his attorneys laid everything out boldly. They wrote, "The integrity of criminal prosecution depends on transparency and impartiality. Here, both were federally compromised. These violations strike at the core of due process and constitutional guarantees of receiving fair hearings in front of an impartial decision maker. Dismissal is the only adequate remedy." They're basically saying the whole process got contaminated and the only fix is to erase the case completely. They're not just asking for a new judge. Durk's legal team is pushing heavy for the entire case to get tossed out the courtroom completely. And if the court refuses that, they want everything moved to a whole new district with fresh judges and new prosecutors who got zero connection to the mess that went down. That's how serious they view this violation, and they're standing on it with confidence.
We got some stuff to get into because, bruh, what the hell? The feds decided to respond, then the judge responded, Then turn around, Drew already on their heels like, y'all can't even do this until something else.
But the prosecution wasn't about to sit quiet and let that slide. They fired back fast, calling Durk's motion frivolous and extreme, basically saying the defense is overreacting. They saying they told the defense about the threats as soon as they wrapped up the investigation, claiming every move they made was done to protect the integrity of the process. According to them, nothing shady happened at all. But here's where things start feeling suspicious, and everybody noticed it instantly. Those same prosecutors are now pushing for an anonymous jury, using the very same threats they brushed off as not serious as proof that Durk supporters might try to intimidate anyone tied to the case. They trying to have it both ways, and it looks messy. So on one side, they saying the threats were just random fans talking wild. But then on the other side, they're using those threats as justification to hide the jury's identities and add all kinds of extra protection. In their filing, prosecutors wrote, defendant supporters have already attempted to intimidate individuals connected to this case. They're using that to paint Durk as somebody with a dangerous network who can reach outside the courtroom and pressure federal officials. It's a heavy picture they're trying to draw. A hearing on this motion was scheduled for November 18, 2025, in front of Judge Michael Fitzgerald at the LA Federal Courthouse, and everybody knew it was about to be intense. This kind of situation, where threats aimed at a judge get hidden from the defense, almost never pops up in major cases. So legal experts across the whole country started paying attention. They want to see how this plays out, because it could set a new standard for what's allowed and what's not. Most legal analysts are saying getting the entire case dismissed is still a long shot. But the fact that Durk's team even has an argument this strong is wild enough on its own. This hearing is shaping up to be one of the biggest turning points in the whole situation. Federal cases usually lean in favor of the prosecution, and judges almost never toss an entire case because of some procedural mistake. They treat that like a last resort move. But getting the case moved to a different district, that's a real possibility. And if every judge in Central California decides to step back because of the conflict, things could get flipped in a major way. The trial is currently scheduled for January 20th of 2026. But depending on how this motion lands, that date could get pushed way down the line. If Durk's team pulls off this relocation, we might be looking at a whole new vibe with a whole new courtroom energy. The street's been buzzing heavy and the evidence keeps building, so before we get deeper into the current situation, we gotta talk about Durk's history because it plays into how the feds are treating him now. Durk been dealing with the system for a long time, and they're using his past to shape how they coming at him today. Back in 2011, he got picked up on a gun charge connected to a shooting investigation and had to sit for 3 months. Then in 2012, he ended up taking a plea for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon and did another 3 months behind that one. In 2013, he got booked again for a stolen burner and spent 43 days locked up. It was like every year the system had eyes on him. Then in 2014, he caught yet another gun charge, this time while he was already on probation. But that one eventually got dismissed, giving him a little breathing room for once. The biggest case before all this federal drama hit was in 2019, when him and King Von got slapped with attempted murder charges in Atlanta after a shooting near the Varsity restaurant. That case had the industry shook. But when 2022 came around, those charges got dismissed and Durk walked away clean from it. But here's the part that really shocked people. In September 2024, just a few weeks before the feds grabbed him on the current case, Durk got his entire criminal record expunged, wiped clean legally, like he reset everything and left his past in the rear view. He had finally gotten himself into a position where his old cases were no longer hanging over him. And then out of nowhere, these federal murder for hire accusations dropped on him like a bomb. It was a crazy turnaround nobody expected. Now, let's break down the specifics the government is claiming went down, because according to the indictment, everything traces back to the long-running tension between OTF and their rivals. This isn't some random situation. The feds are saying it came straight out of an ongoing beef they've been tracking for years. OTF and the crew connected to Quando Rondo and NBA Youngboy been locked into this rivalry for years, and everything flipped after what happened to King Von. Von lost his life on November 6, 2020, outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta after a heated clash between his people and Quando Rondo's circle. That night turned chaotic fast, and Timothy Leaks, known as Lil Tim, who was part of Quando's security team, was the one who fired the shots that took Von's life. The whole situation had the streets talking for months. Those charges against Lil Tim ended up getting dropped in 2023, which shocked a lot of people watching the case. But prosecutors say Durk wasn't about to let any of that go untouched. They're claiming he put money on Quando Rondo's head and used OTF's resources to fund a full retaliation plan, making this beef way deeper than music. The government is using that angle heavy in their argument. Fast forward to August 19, 2022, and this is where things start looking major for the indictment. 5 OTF members flew from Chicago to LA on one-way tickets bought with OTF-linked credit cards, which the feds say is part of the digital trail. That same day, Durk reportedly took a private jet to Cali with Kayvon Grant, and prosecutors are using that timing like it's a puzzle piece that fits perfectly.
You wouldn't tell somebody to not book a flight under your name if you thought that they were going to do regular old business. If you thought they was going to LA to do a meeting about you and your next album, you wouldn't tell them to not do it in your name. You would only tell somebody, don't book no flights under no names involved with me. You would only say that to somebody who you know is about to go do something illegal and you don't want yourself involved with.
Later that night, 2 cars with shooters tracked Quando Rondo to a gas station near the Beverly Center. That's when at least 18 shots were fired at his vehicle, taking the life of his cousin, Savia Lupa Robinson. Wow, Quando made it out without injury. The feds are leaning heavy on this moment because it ties directly into their theory of retaliation. Prosecutors say Grant used Durk's car to purchase ski masks for the shooters and pay for their hotel rooms, which they're calling one of the strongest parts of their evidence. They're pushing this paper trail like it's the backbone of their case. And according to the indictment, Durk isn't the only one in the crosshairs. 5 other men got charged too. Those names include Kayvon London Grant, OTFC Murder, DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, OTF DDY, Keith Jones, OTF Sleazy, David Brian Lindsay, OTF Boom, and AA Houston, OTF Booney Mo. Prosecutors say all of them played roles in planning or carrying out the hit, and they're keeping every detail tight. This indictment is stacked deep, but here's where everything gets even more intense for Durk. Word on the street is the government has a star witness, somebody who flipped and is cooperating with the feds. That one detail alone can shift an entire case, and that's why this situation has the whole industry watching closely. Right now, nobody knows who this cooperating witness is, because the feds always keep those names sealed until the trial starts. But what we do know is that this witness been switching up their story over and over, and that's already causing major cracks in the prosecution's case. According to the court documents, this person first claimed there was no bounty at all and that whatever happened was done under pressure. Then out of nowhere, they changed up and claimed there was a bounty, and that co-defendant DeAndre Wilson supposedly stayed in LA to collect the money and pass it around. That flip alone had people shocked, but Durk's defense team jumped on that fast, saying the second version don't match the verified evidence at all. They pushed back so hard that the government actually removed the part about Wilson handing out bounty money in their updated indictment. That's not a small detail. That's a huge shift. A key witness changing their story like that can blow a hole straight through a federal case. And if this witness hits the stand with mixed up stories, the defense gonna have a field day during cross-examination. This type of inconsistency can shake a courtroom. Now, let's get into a topic that's been causing arguments for years, using rap lyrics in criminal cases. Prosecutors did exactly that in the original indictment against Durk. They used bars from his song Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy as evidence, basically trying to say he was celebrating and profiting from the killing of Lil Pa. The government pushed the idea that these lyrics were Durk bragging about the hit, trying to connect his art to real-life violence. But Durk's legal team shut that down immediately. They pulled out file-stamped audio files, production records, and testimony from the producer, saying the track was recorded 7 months before the shooting even happened. They were like, unless Durk got supernatural powers, there's no way those lyrics were connected to that specific situation.
However, there was no screams in it. What the government said is, look at these lyrics. These lyrics seem to be, they don't seem to be, they are celebrating and ultimately monetizing this incident, to which we responded. And I have to tell you, Vlad, we immediately started hearing from not only people that are connected to Durk, but like executives in the music industry. People were just reaching out to us, go, you know the government's wrong, right? You do know that music, you don't go to a studio on a Saturday and produce a song on Monday. And then we started doing our homework, interviewing the producers, and found out that that song and the Durk part of it was done 7 months before.
That argument hit hard because it showed how fast prosecutors were trying to use his music against him without checking the timelines. Then in May 2025, the government dropped a superseding indictment, and guess what? All those lyric references disappeared completely. That was a big win for Durk's team, but it also exposed something deeper. Prosecutors were pushing his art as evidence even when it didn't match the real facts. It showed how quick they were willing to bend creative expression into criminal intent. And this connects to a much bigger debate in hip-hop, the way lyrics get used against artists instead of being treated as storytelling or entertainment. Fans, lawyers, and artists all been fighting this battle for years. And Durk's case became another example of how messy it gets when the government tries to turn rap lines into confessions.
And I'm sensitive to that issue because I don't know of another art form, and you have your finger on the pulse of rap as good as anybody in the world right now. And I guarantee you that Vlad cannot tell me another musical genre in which the government plays the game. If you have kids, and I know you do, Where's Waldo, right? Where they sit and look through not hundreds, not thousands, but probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of verses, and tries to find something that they think in their prosecutor's office or their law enforcement offices is somehow connected, possibly, to a crime. That's disconcerting to people that care about this musical genre.
California passed the Decriminalizing Artistic Expression Act back in 2022 to stop prosecutors from twisting rap lyrics into criminal evidence. But here's the catch. This is a federal case, so that state law don't protect Durk at all. The feds can still try to use whatever they want, which already had people side-eyeing the whole situation. But hold up, because there's even more heat coming. Newly unsealed documents started tying Durk to other alleged murder-for-hire situations. And that's where things started getting loud in the courtroom. In December 2024, reports popped up linking him to a 2021 killing in Chicago involving someone named Stefan, allegedly connected to revenge for the death of Durk's brother D. That put a whole new spotlight on him. Then it went even further. A confidential witness claimed Durk supposedly placed bounties on 6 different people. Now, nobody got charged for any of that, but prosecutors are using those claims to build a storyline in front of the jury, like they trying to make Durk look like some mastermind behind a bunch of plots. They even planning to bring in testimony saying Durk ordered hits on his own OTF associates, who they claim didn't do enough to get back for King Von. That's the type of allegation that can flip how a jury sees somebody.
Durk's federal case just hit a whole new level of chaos. So authorities are now requesting an anonymous jury after alleged threats against a judge and prosecutor. Prosecutors say the rapper tried to destroy an Apple Watch in jail to cover his tracks, and he's now being accused of allegedly taking out hits on his own O-Block associate.
If any of that were true, it would paint Durk as someone who demanded loyalty at extreme levels. But again, no new charges came out of these claims. Prosecutors are just using them to cast a harsh picture of him, even though none of it has been proven. It's all strategy to sway the room. And then comes another twist. In late August 2025, officers from the Bureau of Prisons confiscated an Apple Watch with full cellular service from Durk while he was locked up. Having any type of smart device or phone inside federal jail is a serious violation by itself. But prosecutors said it didn't stop there. They're claiming Durk tried to destroy the watch when he got caught. That's a major accusation because it lets prosecutors argue he's willing to obstruct justice or hide evidence. They also accusing him of making unapproved 3-way phone calls from inside MDC Los Angeles, which is another violation the government loves to use when they want to prove someone can't be trusted on supervised release. And they're stacking all this together to argue Durk is a danger, can't follow rules, and shouldn't get out on bond at all. And speaking of bond, Durk been denied bail multiple times already. Judge Patricia Donahue shut down his release in May 2025, and then Judge Michael Fitzgerald doubled down and kept him inside again in June 2025. Durk's legal team came with a huge offer. $1 million cash, $900,000 in real estate, $150,000 from an associate, plus 24/7 armed security and electronic monitoring. They basically put everything on the table trying to get him home. But the court still wasn't budging, using the violations, the accusations, and the alleged communication issues as backup for why they felt he shouldn't step out before trial. This is one of the toughest bond battles the industry has seen in years, and the court's been treating it like the stakes couldn't be higher. The government pushed the argument that Durk was a flight risk, saying he booked multiple international flights before he got arrested. They used that as one of their biggest reasons to keep him locked in, trying to show he was preparing to dip out instead of face the charges. But Durk's attorney, Drew Findling, known in the game as the billion-dollar lawyer, came back swinging. He said Durk wasn't trying to flee at all. He was just trying to get to Dubai for business. And when the commercial flights didn't have good seating, he switched to a private jet. That's the type of move somebody with money makes, not someone escaping, according to the defense. What made things even more interesting was the probation officer's recommendation. They actually believed Durk wasn't a flight risk and recommended he should be released. But the judges still weren't convinced and chose to keep him inside anyway. They weren't taking any chances with a case this massive.
Same thing. It was incompletely presented. As soon as we got in and we did our due diligence, right? We got the complete itineraries. And the complete itineraries were all going to Dubai. And so they would just, instead of doing the first and the second stop, I think one of them, for example, was Miami to Newark to, like, say Rome, and then to Dubai. They had it stop at Rome, for example. I can't remember where. And so we got the complete itineraries. Each of them ended in Dubai. Here was the problem. Each of them ended in Dubai, but they were row like 52 middle seat. And respectfully, it's Lil Durk. He's internationally famous. He's not going to sit in the middle row for 17 hours in the back of the plane.
Then November 14th, 2025 hit and everything exploded online. When the news broke that Durk's team filed a motion to dismiss the case because the government hid death threats, social media went into full chaos mode. A college student posted about it, and that post racked up over 1.1 million views, like it was nothing. The comments were a full-on war zone. Some people were hyped, convinced Durk might finally walk free and get the last laugh. They were saying everyone who doubted him gonna be embarrassed if he beats the case. But others weren't buying it at all, pointing out how rare it is to beat a federal indictment. They kept saying the feds don't play, and they weren't lying. The conviction rate is sky high. But then the plot twist came. The post that blew up wasn't even completely legit. It included a video clip that people thought was tied to the threatening voicemails. But the clip was actually from the movie Menace to Society. The dramatic line, "If they get life, I'm gonna burn this me down," was straight from the film, not real evidence at all. It was used for hype, not accuracy. This type of sensational posting is exactly what gets the streets confused and mixes facts with fiction. And here's the biggest question floating around everywhere. Were those threats really coming from Durk's supporters? Or was somebody trying to stir up trouble and frame the situation? The FBI stepped in and treated the threats extremely seriously, giving security to judges and prosecutors all across the Central District of California because things sounded too dangerous to ignore. But the callers were fully anonymous, which keeps everything cloudy and leaves room for people to wonder what really happened. This mystery behind the threats is still one of the biggest unanswered pieces of the case, and it got everybody watching, debating, and trying to figure out whether this was genuine support gone too far or something far more strategic. There's still no direct evidence linking those anonymous threats to Durk or anyone from OTF, even though prosecutors keep calling the callers supporters of Durk. But a lot of people online been throwing out different theories. Some say the government could have used those threats to shape a certain narrative, while others think it might have just been random individuals with no real ties to Durk who wanted to stir up chaos and add fuel to an already messy situation. Nothing is confirmed, and that mystery is making the whole case even louder. Durk's attorney, Drew Findling, didn't come out and say whether he believes the threats were legit or staged, but his legal motion is clear about one thing. No matter where the threats came from, The fact that the government hid them from the defense is a violation of Durk's constitutional rights. And that's the point his team is drilling into the courtroom, because it could change everything. This whole case fits into a bigger pattern that's been happening in the industry for years. Rap artists getting targeted by prosecutors who twist their lyrics, their image, and their public persona into supposed evidence. Critics been saying the same thing. Hip-hop is the only genre where creative expression keeps getting treated like a confession. It's unfair, and it's been happening over and over again. You don't see country artists getting hit with charges because they sing about drinking and driving. You don't see rock bands getting dragged to court for songs with wild violence or dark imagery. But when a rapper uses storytelling and pain or street themes, suddenly prosecutors act like every bar is literal evidence. It's a double standard that's been hurting the culture for decades.
I hate rats. All rats, I hate them all. If you're a rat, I effing hate you. Because you took my dad away from me. A snitch got my dad thrown in prison for this much time. You don't think? Y'all ever met one of them weird kids who doesn't like a figure or something like that based off of something that figure might have did or might have said, and they might even be a good person? It's the same shit. The same shit. There are people who hate Santa Claus right now because Santa Claus never dropped no Christmas presents underneath their tree.
Durk's family even dropped a statement addressing this exact issue, saying, "Rap is art. Durk has always used music to tell stories, to express pain, to heal, and yet those same lyrics are now being used against him. We refuse to stay silent as black artists continue to be criminalized for their creativity. They made it clear they're tired of the system twisting music into something it's not. The YSL Rico case in Atlanta is another example people keep bringing up. Young Thug was held for over 2 years while prosecutors tried to argue that his lyrics were evidence of criminal activity. He eventually took a plea deal, but not before the case dragged on forever and cost millions in legal fees. Cases like that are exactly why people believe the justice system is targeting hip-hop specifically. What's interesting is how quiet Quando Rondo been through all of this, even though the feds say he was the main target of the alleged murder-for-hire plot. Ever since Durk's arrest back in October 2024, Quando dropped a couple of vague messages on IG talking about forgiveness and moving forward. Some people read between the lines and thought he was indirectly reacting to the case. Others think he's staying low because he doesn't want to get pulled deeper into the legal spotlight. Whatever the reason, his silence been adding even more mystery to the whole situation. Since that November 20th, 2025 motion about the hidden death threats, Quando Rondo and his whole camp stayed completely silent. Not a single public statement at all. That silence is loud because it's possible his legal team told him to fall back and say nothing, especially since this case is still active and there's a real chance he could get pulled in as a witness later on. Staying quiet might be the safest move for him right now. NBA YoungBoy, who been tied up in the larger tension between Durk's OTF and Quando's circle, also hasn't said anything about these latest developments. Back in 2022, the beef between him and Durk really popped off with diss tracks like YoungBoy's I Hate YoungBoy and Durk's I Hate, stirring the fan bases up heavy. Then in 2023, there were rumors online saying they squashed it. But even if they did, you can still feel leftover tension in the air. Situations like this bring all that energy right back up. Now, let's keep it real. People want to know what Durk's actual chances are of beating this case. Most legal experts been straight up saying that the motion to dismiss is a long shot. Federal judges rarely throw out whole cases, especially when the case is high profile and the government already invested years of work into it. The bar for dismissal because of government misconduct is extremely high, and prosecutors finna argue they followed the rules by waiting until they finished the investigation before revealing the threats. But getting the case moved to another district, that's a different story. Legal analysts say that option is way more realistic. If Durk's team can convince an appellate court that the Central District of California is too compromised because the judges were dealing with threats and weren't supposed to handle the case under that pressure, then the trial could get moved somewhere like Oregon or another neutral jurisdiction, and that could shift the entire vibe of the trial. Now, when it comes to the actual evidence, things get complicated fast. Prosecutors say they got wiretaps, financial records showing OTF credit cards were used for flights and equipment, text messages, and on top of that, possibly multiple cooperating witnesses. That's a lot of weight to push in federal court, and the government loves stacking every piece they can to make the story look solid. But Durk's defense already picked up some serious wins. They got the rap lyrics removed from the indictment, and they already poked holes in key witness statements, especially with that witness who kept switching up their story. If his lawyers keep knocking down weak parts of the case, creating reasonable doubt, and presenting strong counter-arguments, things could shift in his favor. It's not impossible, just extremely difficult. And now, let's talk about the worst-case scenario, because people need to know what's actually on the line here. If Durk goes to trial and loses, this is life imprisonment territory. There is no 10 years, no 15 years, no light sentence to fall back on. This is federal court, and they play a different game entirely. As Vlad put it in the interview clip people been quoting, this is a life imprisonment case. There's no in-between. This isn't state court. There's no, hey, we'll do 10, 15. It's a life.
In the worst case situation, how much time is he facing if he blows trial?
Vlad, this is
Life?
This is a life imprisonment case.
Okay.
There's no in between. This isn't state court. There's no, hey, we'll do 10, 15. It's a life case.
Right. Could it be a capital murder case where he's possibly facing the death penalty?
Well, that, under the federal system, that possibility exists. We've not been given notice of that.
And then came the question everyone's scared to even think about. Could this turn into a capital murder case with the possibility of the death penalty? That's the level of severity this situation is reaching. And it's why every legal move being made right now has massive consequences. Under the federal system, that possibility is definitely on the table, even if the government hasn't given official notice yet. And let's keep it honest, federal cases come with a conviction rate over 90%. The government doesn't file charges unless they feel extremely confident they can win. And when a case involves a life loss plus a money trail that prosecutors say links OTF resources to the situation, the odds leaning heavy against Durk. The trial is scheduled for January 20th, 2026, but that date is far from locked in. Depending on what happens at the big November 18th hearing and any appeals that might come after, that trial date could get pushed back again. There's also a huge pre-trial hearing set for June 2nd, 2025, where the motion to dismiss is going to be fully argued in federal court. That day is going to be intense. If the judge denies the motion, Durk's team is almost guaranteed to appeal instantly. And if the judge actually grants the motion, which would shock the entire legal world, then you can bet the government will appeal right away. No matter what, this case is going to drag out for a long time. Nothing about this is moving fast. Meanwhile, Durk is still being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in LA, and his lawyers continue pushing to get him released on bond. They've been fighting nonstop, but the court hasn't budged yet. One thing Durk does have working for him is his legal squad, especially Drew Findling, known everywhere as the billion-dollar lawyer. Findling has represented everybody from Gucci Mane to Cardi B, Lil Baby, and NBA Youngboy. And he's built a reputation for being extremely aggressive, creative, and strategic with his defenses. That's the type of lawyer you want when you're facing federal charges that carry life. Findling already secured big wins in past cases. He helped get Lil Baby's charges reduced to time served. He negotiated a deal for YFN Lucci that let him get out in the near future. And he played a major role helping NBA Youngboy beat multiple gun and drug cases. If anybody can navigate a complicated federal murder-for-hire indictment, it's him. But even he said straight up that this case is an uphill battle from every angle. And regardless of how Durk's situation ends, this whole thing is another example of the complicated relationship between the criminal justice system and hip-hop culture. Drill music especially been under the microscope for years. Critics say it glorifies violence and fuels real street conflicts, while supporters argue it's simply artists telling their truth and reflecting the harsh environments they grew up in. The real answer probably sits somewhere in the middle. But one thing is for sure, when law enforcement targets drill rappers, they're not just prosecuting crimes. They're putting pressure on a whole culture, a whole sound, and a whole community of artists using music to survive and express themselves. And cases like this show how dangerous that tension can get when the courtroom and the industry collide. Durk been trying hard to shift into a more positive lane these past few years. He launched the Neighborhood Heroes Foundation, embraced Islam, and even talked about stepping away from violent themes in his music. But no matter how much growth he showed, his past and the history tied to OTF came back knocking loud. So where does that leave everything now? Durk is staring down the possibility of life behind the wall in a case built on text messages, credit card trails, witness statements, and evidence the feds say they've been stacking for over 2 years. His legal team dropped a bombshell motion claiming death threats toward the judge, and prosecutors were hidden from them, which could have tainted the entire process. That motion alone could decide the direction this whole trial takes. Durk continues saying he's innocent and his supporters been rallying behind him across the internet. But the federal conviction rate sits at over 90%, and prosecutors don't file charges like these unless they feel extremely confident. This trial is scheduled for January 2026, but with pretrial arguments, appeals, and the chance the case gets moved to a whole different district, this could stretch out for months, maybe even years. The whole hip-hop community watching closely because what happens here could shape the future of the culture. This case could set new standards for how rap lyrics get used in courtrooms, how the government handles artists tied to alleged street crews, and whether hiding something as serious as death threats can actually derail a federal prosecution. The stakes are huge, and everybody knows it. And before we wrap this up, listen. If you're rocking with this breakdown and you want to stay locked in with everything happening in the streets, you gotta join the family. Turn those notifications on and hit that subscribe button to Rap Uncovered right now. We drop heat every single day, and tomorrow's upload is gonna be even crazier, even deeper, and absolutely unmissable. Smash that like button, send this video to your homeboys, and drop your thoughts in the comments because we need to hear what the street's thinking. We'll catch you in the next one, right here at Rap Uncovered, where the truth of the streets lives.